Hey insomniacs, overthinkers, time killers, and tangent takers. Lie back and get comfy because tonight we're gonna take a deep dive into the meaning of Vanya. Vanya has been playing at the Icarus Theatre for years, but she hasn't advanced at all in her career. Unlike Helen, whose first chair, Vanya has been stuck at third. You have to think she can't be that bad, otherwise why give her the job in the first place, but everyone on the orchestra seems to just tolerate her like a noisy neighbor you can't get rid of but can't confront because they have a massive dog and a bad attitude, so you just make this face every time you hear them come home. So Vanya probably isn't the best, but she probably isn't the worst either. And if you think about it, to be the worst at something is to be exceptional in a way, like the masterpiece, The Room. The Room isn't just a bad movie, it's a really bad movie.
How was work today?
Oh, pretty good. We got a new client at the bank. We'll make a lot of money.
What client?
I cannot tell you, it's confidential.
Oh, come on, why not?
No, I can't. Anyway, how is your sex life?
If being a bad movie was an Olympic sport, The Room would have a gold medal and an unbroken world record.
It's your instinct to just say F this movie, it's a horrible piece of shit. Why would you do this? What an idiot. But what you can't ignore is that there's tons of bad movies that aren't watchable and that no one watches over and over and over again. So there is something you kind of have to give credit to because of all shitty movies, he made one that people still watch 10 years later. There is something probably of obviously no, effort of the guy who made it. But there is something that's oddly brilliant about it.
And that's why people love it. It's so bad it's good, and once you've seen it once, you just want to see it again and again and again. The Room proves that to be the worst at something is to make an impression. Vanya never makes an impression. She's a complete non-entity. To make matters worse, no one seems to remember Vanya.
What is your name again?
The conductor doesn't notice when she arrives late.
I'm so sorry I'm late.
I hadn't noticed.
Helen doesn't even remember her name.
What's your name again? Vanya?
I mean, Vanya apparently wrote a best-selling book about being a part of the most famous family in the world. You would think someone, somewhere would remember her, but no one ever does. Vanya's the exact sort of person whose death would remain undiscovered for weeks until her neighbors notice the rancid smell wafting from the apartment next door. So Vanya plays the violin at the Icarus Theatre. That's got to mean something, right? The show keeps showing us the Icarus Theatre over and over again. Since you probably already know the story, I'll go through it real quick. In Greek mythology, Icarus's father, legendary inventor Daedalus, creates a labyrinth for King Minos to hold the Minotaur, who, by the way, was the love child of the queen and a magical white bull. Now, I was going to tell you that whole sick story, but luckily for you, I changed my mind. Anyway, the king is mad, so he imprisons Daedalus and his son Icarus in the labyrinth. Daedalus, the genius, breaks out of prison, of course, and makes a pair of wings out of feathers and wax so he and Icarus can escape from the island of Crete. Before they fly off, Daedalus warns Icarus of two things. First, don't fly too low or the water will dampen your feathers and you will fall. The second, don't fly too high or the sun will melt the wax in your wings and you will fall. Icarus's flaw is overconfidence, or what the Greeks called hubris. He ignores his father's warnings. Absorbed by the exhilarating feeling of flight, he soars too high, and as predicted, the sun melts his wings and he falls drowning in the sea below. People tend to think the point of the story is to caution against arrogance or the dangers of blind ambition, but it's really a story about finding balance. Balance between aiming too high and aiming too low. So let's ask the obvious question. Who is Icarus in the Umbrella Academy? And what does it all mean? Plenty of characters fit. Leonard tries to be great and fails, which fuels his anger and need for revenge.
You have no power. You never will have power. Now, go home.
He thinks he can control Vanya, but this overconfidence leads to his undoing. Reginald Hargreaves believes he can raise a group of superheroes to save the world, and when he fails to achieve this with Vanya, he thinks he can suppress her power. Ultimately, his attempts end in an apparent self-fulfilling prophecy. By trying to save the world, he only ends up destroying it. 5 ignores his father's warnings about time travel, and as a result, he ends up trapped in the post-apocalyptic future with only a store mannequin for company. And what about Vanya? Vanya captures the philosophy of the Icarus myth best. Her story is first characterized by a lack of confidence.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
She spends most of her life being weighed down by her family as well as her own self-image. She flies too low, only to discover the truth, become unburdened, and for the first time in her life she soars. But Vanya soars too high, leading to world-ending consequences. Now you've got to feel a little sorry for Vanya here. She spends her entire life being overlooked, ignored, and undermined.
Why can't I go play with the others?
We've been through this before, number 7. I'm afraid there's just nothing special about you.
And once, just once, she gets to be special and it pretty much ruins everything. Vanya has been taking pills for her nerves since she was 4 years old. Although she believes the pills help her, they only seem to make her numb. We learn later in the season that the pills suppress her emotions, which keeps her power contained. It's only when she runs out of her meds, well, actually Leonard steals them, that she can finally feel again.
What? Nothing. You just seem happy.
Well, honestly, I feel the best I have felt in a long time.
Oh, yeah?
It's crazy. I've been on this medication since I can't even remember. And I ran out yesterday, and I feel great.
We see her become more self-assured, more willing to express her feelings. She plays amazingly for the first time because she can finally emotionally connect with the music. And as a result, her powers manifest. Maybe the show is making a comment about antidepressants. Lots of people who are depressed or anxious credit antidepressants with saving their life or taking the edge off an otherwise unbearable existence.
The origins of life are messy and imprecise. We're all the result of natural selection.
True! So why should I feel crappy about something that makes me happy?
Though it may be hard to maintain an erection.
But some people complain about feeling numb or like a zombie. Sometimes this type of emotional blunting is the price a person has to pay to function. But for some people, feeling numb prevents them from enjoying life. For this sort of person, numbing the bad feelings also numbs the good feelings. Now, I'm not sure if the writers mean for us to connect these dots or not, but if you ask me, these dots belong to us. And it doesn't really matter what they think because the author is dead. But not literally.
To go on a mission, Vanya, you have to have a power.
Vanya's childhood is a lonely one. She is excluded from the Umbrella Academy, excluded from missions, which is basically the Umbrella Academy version of going out to a family restaurant. She's even excluded from family photographs, which seems kind of unnecessary. And of course, like any child, she's desperate to belong. Vanya grows up believing she isn't special. Since in her family, being special is what makes you worthy, she grows up feeling worthless, and that feeling follows her throughout her adult life.
I have been left out of everything for as long as I can remember. And I used to think it was Dad's fault, but he's dead. So it turns out you're the assholes.
Reginald Hargeeves felt threatened by Vanya's powers, afraid that they would become too great to control. Now, there's probably a feminist reading of this about a powerful man suppressing a woman's power because it poses a threat to his own. But the counter message is that women are emotional and incapable of wielding power. So have fun chewing on that in the comments. Although Reginald Hargeeves thought suppressing Vanya's powers would keep her and her siblings safe, it was this very act that would culminate in her ending the world. Maybe if she had been taught control, she never would have lost it at the end. Maybe if she hadn't been betrayed and lied to by literally everyone, she never would have had a psychotic break at the end. There are lots of moments when people try to control Vanya, but they only end up making things worse. To deal with Vanya's powers, Reginald Hargeeves uses his go-to parenting technique: solitary confinement. Luther, their daddy's boy, repeats his father's mistake by locking her in the very same soundproof room. We discover through Allison that at age 4, their dad made her use her rumor power on Vanya.
I'm number 3.
But then he asked me to do something I never understood.
I heard a rumor. You think you're just ordinary.
This rumor is a really cruel one. Rather than making Vanya believe she has no powers, the rumor instead makes her believe that she is ordinary. With this, Vanya isn't just rendered physically powerless, but mentally powerless too. Crippled with low self-esteem and feelings of worthlessness. From that moment on, Vanya doesn't think she's special in any way. And as a result, she manifests this reality. Her life ends up being unremarkable in every single way. Even her music is uninspiring, despite her countless hours of dedicated practice.
How many years have you been stuck at third chair? At a certain point, it's not about practice. It's whether you've got something special. And maybe you just don't.
People forget she exists because she doesn't believe she's worth noticing. It isn't until she meets the diabolical Leonard that she realizes she's special because she's special to him. Like Leonard says in episode 5,
I'm telling you, if you believe in yourself for once, just once, great things are gonna happen for you.
this is Vanya's arc. The only thing she needs is to believe in herself. Through Vanya, the show says to the audience, don't give in to your inner critic. Stop thinking the worst of yourself. Believe in yourself and you too can unleash the power lying dormant within. So sure, Vanya gets a little out of control, but it's understandable. She never learned control in the first place, and her whole reality's been flipped upside down. Leonard, the only person who ever loved her, is a liar who's been manipulating her, using her as a tool for his own revenge. Her father imprisoned her physically and mentally. Her sister was an agent in her oppression, and the closest thing she has to a loving dad in Pogo has been lying to her. She's devastated. The part of her that has long been suppressed is unleashed and lashes out. She hurts the ones who hurt her, destroys each room of the Umbrella Academy along with her unwanted memories. With this newfound power, she can sever the ties to her past and everything that reminds her of the person she used to be, and finally move on. Literally becoming someone new. The White Violin. Like a lot of superpowered characters before her, Vanya's powers are tied to her emotions. When she's upset, she can resonate with the sounds around her, turning them into energy. But she's also kind of telekinetic. The show isn't really clear on this. And like all those other characters, like Jean Grey as the Phoenix, Jennifer from Black Lightning, Raven from Titans, Credence Barebones from Fantastic Beasts, or David Haller from Legion, the list goes on, Vanya has to learn to control her emotions in order to control her powers. The meaning of this is pretty simple. If you don't have control over your emotions will have control over you. And if you try to suppress your feelings, you become an emotional volcano, waiting to one day erupt, causing unpredictable damage to your life and the people you care about. Vanya's story urges us not to fear our emotions, but instead to accept and embrace them. Because it's only by doing this that we can ever hope to master them, and ultimately master ourselves. Maybe Vanya needs to join some sort of order who can teach her control over her emotions and her powers.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
So what is the meaning of Vanya? In some ways, Vanya is the archetypical 21st century human. Like Vanya, all our lives we've been shown images of extraordinary people. Maybe your parents sent you to after-school classes to make you special. Maybe they played you Mozart in the womb to make you special. Maybe you try to meditate every day of your life or start a bullet journal in an effort to be the perfect version of yourself. And everywhere you look, you see a genius, and everyone you swipe went to an Ivy League college, runs a charity, knows several languages. Everyone is apparently an Instagram model, athlete, or tech millionaire. Social media is full of images that suggest that everyone around you is special, and you're alone, isolated, ordinary, just like Vanya.
You are not special. Ordinary, pathetic, nothing.
This kind of feeling can lead to anxiety about your life choices or apparent imperfections, depression from comparing yourself to others, or a sense that you need to keep achieving in order to be worthy, forever competing with an infinite number of seemingly superhuman peers. Vanya's arc is relatable because lots of us have felt like her at some point.
How come you're not in any of these?
always about the Umbrella Academy. I just didn't make the cut. So.
And I'll admit it, I felt like Vanya sometimes too. And who knows, maybe you have as well. But like with your friends on Facebook whose lives seem perfect, Vanya's siblings only seem great from the outside. In reality, they're all actually really messed up. Allison's life is based on her powers, and nothing in it feels real because nothing in it is. Diego has Batman syndrome, needing to fight crime to fill some unfillable hole in his soul. Luther's life is controlled by their father, even in death. Klaus is an aimless addict, Five is kind of sociopathic and arguably delusional, and Ben is dead. Compared to the others, Vanya is a success. She holds down a job, she has her own place, she's a best-selling author, sort of. For the most part, her life is her own, and everything she has was earned. Vanya's struggle is learning that what makes her special isn't what she can do, but instead who she is. She doesn't have to do anything to be worthy, she just has to be herself. Hey, wait, don't leave yet, I have a request. If you liked this video, and I hope you did, then please like the video. It doesn't take you long, but it means a lot to this tiny underdog channel. And if you want more videos like this, overthinking TV, movies, comics, manga, anime, games, and more, then subscribe below. And sometimes when we aren't feeling too lazy, we overthink books too. Oh, and one last thing. What do you think Vanya's story means? This was Night Owl Cinema. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the bed slugs bite.